So in the first of these videos, I actually said, now one of the words that comes to mind when I hear the word Disney is Christmas time. And I'm sure I'm not the only person to have this association. After all, Disney is a big brand name company. And since I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, I was kind of there for the big boom of Disney merchandise. So, along with the kind of things I'm reviewing today, I also saw stuff like full-length Christmas films from Disney, stuff on the Disney Channel, and in all honesty, the most persistent one was really the fact that there were a lot of Christmas ornaments. I would show you them if I felt like it, and also if a lot of them haven't kind of been accidentally destroyed thanks to the passage of time. But the biggest thing really is the made-for-TV and the direct-to-video stuff. I'll never be frank with you. I think some of the stuff may have been more so made-for-TV, but direct-to-video sounds better in the title, doesn't it? Especially if I get to talk about one of the more infamous aspects of the early 2000s and late 90s Disney stuff, and why that may or may not be a little overblown. Oh, and unlike last time, I have props. Yeah, I mean, I'm still probably gonna get most of the footage from Disney Plus anyway, just like last time, but at least I have physical props. Isn't that exciting? So first, we're gonna go to something I think is probably one of the best received and one of the most beloved Disney Christmas things. Mickey Mouse's Once Upon a Christmas.
Lights twinkle and glow, and bells brightly chime. The moment's arrived. It's here. Christmas time.
So what is Once Upon a Christmas for those of you uninitiated? Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas is this special that is narrated by Kelsey Grammer, but he's only there to tell you what's coming next. It's a series of 3 shorts that are all Christmas related. The first one, it claims Donald Duck stars in it, but really it's his 3 nephews, and it's a Christmas everyday type of plot. You have Max and Goofy, and they're doing a Max doesn't really believe in Santa anymore, oh no, the peril. And finally, we have a retelling of The Gift of the Magi, starring Mickey and Minnie Mouse. These are all pretty simple and straightforward explanations, right? And the tellings of these stories sort of are direct and straightforward. But where Once Upon a Christmas excels is the nice, relaxing feeling of Christmas and some of that good, raw, emotional stuff that, as I said previously, is what I actually really get attached to with Disney. So to go in order again, what really works for the Duck nephews in Christmas Every Day is, well, just simple character development, really. The boys start off as kids who really enjoy Christmas for basically selfish and self-centered reasons. They really like the gifts, they really like the food, they really like, well, just the fun they have on Christmas, and they kind of completely ignore those fun, calm family aspects. And I know, that sounds chilly, and I know, that sounds cheesy and corny on paper, but a good Christmas special knows that you need the cheesy and the corniness to really work, because if you don't have it, does it really feel like Christmas? I'm kind of a Christmas junkie. I love me some Christmas specials, and I know that in one way or another, they kind of, there's this weird unwritten rule that they kind of have to be flawed in some way or another, as they're all about giving you the feeling of Christmas way more than anything else. And over the years, I've kind of come to grips better with how I can rank and rate that kind of stuff, while also having my own personal attachments. And I think Once Upon a Christmas is one of the better ways I can actually get that across. Despite the fact it's a spoiler, I just kind of have to show this bit, because it just encapsulates everything very well and really gets what we watch Christmas specials for, really.
To Huey, Dewey, and Louie, Christmas isn't about candy canes, holly, or lights all aglow. It's about the hearts that we touch and the care that we show.
So that first special is fun with some very nice heartwarming moments. And the second one is definitely mostly heartwarming with a little bit of funny stuff. And it's shocking to think there's only a little bit of funny stuff when, you know, It's Goofy. Of course, it's Max and Goofy, so I guess it's not that surprising after all. I won't lie to you guys, I typically hate the I don't know if I believe in Santa plot anymore for, well, some obvious reasons. It just kind of ends up feeling pointless to me. And sure, Santa is canonically real in this, so whatever. But sometimes it's a bit hard to get that disconnect. It sometimes just feels sort of like forcing some kind of emotion. But thankfully, it's Max and Goofy. And Disney's always been pretty good about writing their relationship very well. So it could have come across as forced. Instead, it just actually really works. It's just hard to not really like seeing Goofy just be a surprisingly nice and supporting and tender father. It really shouldn't have worked, and it also does not surprise me that it works. It's just something that I feel like is hard to just simply explain, because it is just a generic belief in Santa plot, but it is certainly one I'd go to more often than, say, like, the Polar Express. But then we got to get to the Magi, and here's a little bit more personal story. I had not read The Gift of the Magi the first few times I had seen the special, and when I finally read The Gift of the Magi, I remember explicitly thinking, this is nowhere near as good as the Mickey Mouse version. I actually will say it's probably my favorite one out of the three. It really does work the best, and is kind of written the best too. It's paced out really good, and unlike The Gift of the Magi, it's a bit more believable that its characters are in the situation and how they come across with the solution. I know I'm being like a little bit overly vague than the others, but it's the best one, so it's the one I kind of don't want to give the most away. And I know, just by saying The Gift of the Magi, if you know that story, you know, it's just this really sweet story about Mickey and Minnie, admittedly mostly about Mickey, and it just really works so well. It is pretty funny when it wants to be. And I will also say, of all the things Pete has done, this is kind of one of the nastiest versions of Pete, and I am all here for it. Dirty, used tree salesman Pete? I love it. So, like I said, I'm a Christmas special junkie. But, part of that's also because I didn't know too many Christmas specials. Like, I definitely grew up with plenty of them, but I didn't always remember all of them, and as a lot of these are just things you buy on DVD, I didn't always have like a big collection of them to go through for Christmas time. But it's been a few years since I've started going on my way to look for Christmas specials, so I know even more and I love even more. And because of that, my feelings, I think, are more concrete than ever. So I don't throw 5-star ratings at every Christmas special I've ever seen. I save the 5 stars for the ones I see every single year. Because even though there'll be some objective problems in those 5-star ones because they're Christmas specials, something has to be weaker. Like I said, it's the unwritten rule. 5 stars are for every year. And there was a time that Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas was 5 stars for me. I still basically love it as much. I'm just a little more aware of how I really feel about it and how strong of a special I think it really is. Sorry, I just scratched my cheek. I swear I'll never do it again. So, it's still a 4. It's still, no joke, a 4 out of 5. And, that means it's that on the big final ranking list, it's gonna end up higher than Snow White. So this direct-to-video and/or made-for-TV Mickey Mouse 3 shorts in 1 Christmas special is something I think is a definitive Disney experience. Now, I gotta break some bad news to you, though. Once Upon a Christmas was so popular, they made it Twice Upon a Christmas.
'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house. Oh, wait, different story, but we'll still see a mouse.
It's right here on the same Blu-ray, as you can see. The first time I watched Twice Upon a Christmas, The first was very fresh in my mind, and I watched it and I went, you know, it's not awful, but it's nothing like the first one. It's a real serious downgrade. Then the second time I watched it was a few years ago. And this was when Once Upon a Christmas had stopped being my once-a-year thing. And I had a hankering for it, but I also felt it was fair to give Twice Upon a Christmas a second go-around. And that time I actually quite liked it. It was still pretty weak. Some stuff just still did not work out. But I felt when it was good, it was actually pretty good and worked very well. So the problem with Twice Upon a Christmas is if you watch it, like, in any period of time with the first, its flaws are way more evident. And I feel like that can't always be a fair comparison. When it's actually supposed to be the sequel to something, then it's fair. If I say, like, you know, Die Hard isn't as good as Raiders of the Lost Ark, that's a dumb comparison, right? Because they're just action films. But to say Twice Upon a Christmas is really not anywhere near as good as Once Upon a Christmas, and therefore deserves a bit more heavy criticism, I feel like that's a bit more fair. Because especially, it really highlights the issues. Twice Upon a Christmas decides that because it's the sequel, it needs to have more shorts. And I don't even necessarily disagree with that. There's 5 this time. But the runtime isn't all that much different. Which means that there's some really weird pacing issues with some of them. In fact, if this had been a few years ago time, I would have said 3 of them are pretty good, but you could have cut 2 of them. Watching it this time, there's only 2 that really kind of work. And the other ones just... One of them is just so short that it just can't really work at all because I can't really get enough time with it to know what's... Well, I know what's wrong with it, I just don't know what works in it. And then the other one, well, let's just go in order so I can sound a bit less vague. The very first one is Mickey and Minnie... No. The very first one, Minnie Mouse and Daisy Duck are in this really cool ice skating competition thing. And even then, maybe that gives some kind of hint, because what does ice skating have to do with Christmas? It's tangential, but is it overtly Christmas? Versus that first film where everything was able to be overtly Christmas without crossing that threshold of this is a bit much. The second one has 2 problems in that regard. When it decides to be Christmassy, it feels really, well, commercial. I don't hate the commercialization of Christmas all that much, but I definitely prefer the nice, warm, emotional stuff, and the first film has so much of it. The second film having just the commercialist stuff, boy can you tell that something's wrong here. The color red and the color green shows up later at some point, and there's a big present, but that's literally it. It feels like a winter short and doesn't feel like Christmas. And you know, if it was paced a bit better and a bit funnier, well, I guess that wouldn't work out so bad, but instead, I watched it wondering why it was here. I guess I just showed you some footage. I guess I should have got that cat out of the bag, huh? They changed the animation style. Now it's CGI. And it's funny, that second time I watched it years ago, I didn't think it was bad. Watching it again, I thought it actually worked kind of fine. And I really liked the new storybook angle that the narrator has to introduce the stories. In fact, I still think that's the best part of it, watching it this time. But on this watch, I ended up realizing that it kind of looks like Scary Godmother without those really elasticy expressions. And the thing about Scary Godmother is, those elasticy expressions are so fun that it makes the dated nature really charming for the animation. Twice Upon a Christmas just looks dated. It doesn't look awful, I really don't think. But I wouldn't necessarily call it all that good because it has just aged kind of poorly. They look a little bit too plasticine. And yeah, that does take you out of it a little bit. But I would have been fine if that was the only bit that took me out of it. It's the nature of the actual content that doesn't work out as well. So let's go to story number... Oh man. Here's a problem, everybody. I remember all 5 shorts. And I remember which one comes first. I remember which one comes last. The other 3 are a little bit nebulous. I don't really remember which order they go in. So how about I say the order I think they come in, and if I'm wrong, I guess it proves the point anyway? Well, we get the nephews again. And this time, Scrooge McDuck talked to the boys about how you need to behave a little bit better on Christmas. Which again kind of proves that there's no continuity in the first one, because they learned that lesson the first time. And it's mostly just, well, they don't even behave as badly as that first one either. They just stole some cookies early. That's it. And so Scrooge tells them how, when I was a kid, I was rotten, and that's how I made all my money, and Santa never gave me any gifts. Yeah, that's the magical plots we're going with. And the funny thing is, for as much as I just made fun of it, it may be the best one in this one, because at least it's kind of got some fun, kinetic Christmas energy. And it's also the one that has some of the better jokes.
I'm sure the cookies were delicious, Uncle Scrooge.
They were.
Boys, I want to tell you something important.
That you made us more cookies? No, that might send the wrong message.
There's more to life than just money.
There's owning a mansion with its own zip code, and having a different private jet for every day of the week, and an Olympic-sized swimming pool with your own submarine.
Yes, the submarine is a highlight.
Yeah, it's one of the two that I think didn't really need any changing. I think it actually works good for this one. Which also means you might as well just go see that one. If you're vaguely interested or just need more Christmas messages in your life, so you were going to watch this one regardless, I'll leave that one a bit more of a mystery. That way you can kind of enjoy that one, as it is maybe the best story in that special. And then what I believe is 3 is another Goofy and Max one. And it is in the running for probably the worst one on this. I know I just said Goofy and Max, Disney's always good at writing them. This one may be the exception. Max is like college age again in this one, and he has a new girlfriend again in this one. And if you're worried that I'm just like a Roxanne stan, no, I just don't like this one because it's not very good. It's a music video! I can't even show you any clips with sound because the whole thing almost entirely is a music video. And it's a very blatant, overtly messaged music video, so it just doesn't work. Even for Christmas, and cheesy, and kitschy, and corny, and all that stuff, it does not work. It's boring. It's boring and it's pointless. I just didn't want to watch that one this time. Don't get me wrong, I did. But if anything had to be cut, I would have called that one. This is the one I just kind of overtly disliked, because there's nothing there to like. It is just a very boring, generic story about Max bringing a girl home and worried that Goofy's going to embarrass him, which we've seen with these two before so many times that it is actually boring. With the Belief in Santa one, well, I've seen that story before. Have I seen it with Max and Goofy before? No. So it's at least kind of unique. With this one, I don't care that her name is Mona in this one. I have seen Max worried that Goofy's going to embarrass him in front of a girl. I've seen that so many times that it's just boring. And it being a music video with hardly any substance just kills it. It sucks. If I was going to rank the shorts individually, which no, I'm not gonna. I'm going to treat the whole thing like a movie. That's the one that would get like a star or maybe just 1/2. It's got nothing of value. It's not making me angry, despite how this is the closest to angry I've gotten so far. But it's the big reason why I can't help but say, well, spoilers for the other two. Twice Upon a Christmas is the lowest rated one that we're going to talk about today. And if you remember the thumbnail, I'm not joking. You know what's next, and I think Twice Upon a Christmas is the worst one. Then we got one with Donald, and the boys are in this one too. But this one actually is about Donald, so at the very least, there's something kind of different. It's just that Donald wants hot chocolate, and everyone keeps bothering him. And while it's not great, at least there's some relatability to it. Like, the thing about Donald Duck that makes him work as a character is that he is kind of our inner demons. He lets rotten days get the worst of him. He gets to lash out, he gets to be angry. And we always get to see why that's a bad thing, but it's also cathartic. Because we want to act like that when things aren't going our way. So even though it's still one of the weaker ones, actually, you know what? The hell with it. I've decided this right now. Donald's Hot Chocolate was a better story than the Mickey and Daisy ice skating. Yeah, I would have cut the ice skating one and kept Donald and his ice cream. Ice cream. And then the last one is Pluto accidentally wrecks Mickey's Christmas decorations when Mickey was overdoing it anyway. And so Mickey gets mad at him, and so Pluto runs away. And I feel like the setup for this story is something we've seen before, but it's also still the one in the ranking for the best special out of all these. I guess they can get on it again. I do have a fondness for Donald's Hot Chocolate, even though it's not great. I mean, the comedy's pretty weak, and everybody but Donald is actually kind of annoying in that one. But if there's anything that actually comes close to the nephew's adventure, it is Pluto's adventure. And that's also the thing. It's Pluto's story. One thing I will give Twice Upon a Christmas is it actually tried to be about different characters than the first one. Everyone from the first one shows up, but it does try to have a different viewpoint. Sure, the nephews get their own story, just like last time, but Donald gets his own story this time. And when it's time for Mickey, they say the hell with Mickey, give it to Pluto. Heck, Minnie is the star of the first one. So I do think Twice Upon a Christmas just kind of barely works overall as a package. The stuff I like is actually pretty fun, and I can imagine watching some of those by themselves, but only on in the background, which, hey, is a Christmas special thing. We all do it. We all know we do it. But I'm going to just have to say it's a 2.5. And I'm going to put it, I'm going to put it at a 2.5. I'm sorry. This was the least fun I had out of all these Christmas specials. And I'm not really surprised, because I kind of knew that would happen. But I'm more disappointed than last time, and that's, sad. So here's a quick little explanation of something that happened for the Disney company during the late 90s and the early 2000s. Direct-to-video sequels. If you're not familiar with what a direct-to-video sequel is, it's this practice that a lot of people seem to think only Disney did. Or at least during the early internet years, people seem to think only Disney did. It was a practice for feature-length animated movies to make a little extra money and tell some extra stories. And every company did it. There were a lot of ones based on Don Bluth movies. Most famously is the 14 or so Land Before Time movies. But there was also an American Tail 3 and 4. And I feel like those two alone are worse than most of the Disney ones. There was also Secret of NIMH 2, since we're still on Bluth, and that one's weird. Movies like The Swan Princess 2 and 3. There were a lot of direct-to-video sequels, but the Disney ones got the most notoriety for good and bad reasons. And I sort of get it. Disney is a company very proud of its high-quality stamp, so to see them engage in direct-to-video sequels, which have lower production values than full-length movies, but had the names of their full-length theatrical movies, they were inherently worth less, and people kind of took a bigger issue with that. They were all just kind of universally weaker than the real movies, and some of them actually are also really bad. I'm a lot more kind. I think most of them are just mediocre, some even kind of average and kind of fun. There's only a small handful that are bad. Which means, yes, I've actually seen all of them prior, so I'll be revisiting all of them during this marathon. And you know what? Here's the first one, because it's Christmas themed. This is The Beauty and the Beast, The Enchanted Christmas. The emotional discourse on this one is a bit of a roller coaster. Some people think it's actually not half bad, like it is Christmassy, and the characters are, a little out of place, but not that terrible. And then some people think it's highly annoying. They think it's a slap in the face of the original movie, and that none of the characters are done justice. And I guess they're really, really negative responses I just don't kind of agree with, but part of that is because, again, I understand what direct-to-video is. I do lower the threshold a little bit. I understand that how many limitations there were, so I try to judge accordingly. I do kind of like this movie. Not that much, I just do kind of like it. I think the comedy is very hit or miss. Some stuff is actually pretty funny, and then some stuff is actually pretty not funny. Some of the biggest complaints are for character stuff, most notably the Beast. He noticeably regresses in this movie quite a bit. And I think that's an issue that the writers were aware of. The movie is stated to take place right after the Beast saves Belle from the wolves, which means that there's already some of the character development he went through in the first movie should be applied to him for this movie. But then it'd be a little bit harder to have conflict, and these were mostly the TV show writers. So, how do you do that? How do you have some conflict with a character who's gotten rid of most of his worst tendencies? The answer, unfortunately, is you regress him. And sometimes that regression is just kind of out of nowhere, and it really feels it. And I'm not even really thoroughly mad, I'm just, a little disappointed. Not even because I expect so much better writing from these guys for no reason. It's because they actually did try to explain it. And sometimes that did work. The new villain of this movie is the evil pipe organ known as Forte, and he's voiced by Tim Curry, which is kind of one of the reasons why he's a fan favorite. There are people that don't really like this movie who will still stand by Forte because he's voiced by Tim Curry, but also because he actually has a pretty unique motive. He's weirdly tragic for these direct-to-video characters, and also because his CGI is so jarring it actually kind of works, because he's the big scary villain. Some of the earlier direct-to-video stuff, I think, was either given a bigger budget, or they allowed themselves to be more experimental. Because stuff like this, and say, the third Aladdin movie, or the second Lion King movie, they try to have a bit more atmosphere on them. Some of the later ones, and especially some of the worst ones, really do just feel like a generic TV movie. That's kind of where a lot of my opinion stems from, is that so many of them feel like that. But Beauty and the Beast, The Enchanted Christmas is actually an honest-to-God movie. There's something about it that definitely feels cheaper than a theatrical movie, although I've seen some lesser companies put stuff like this in theaters, so... And there is something kind of enjoyable about how experimental it is. But that also means its flaws are a bit more noticeable. Because it does have some highs, like, say, Forte, it means that the lows are a lot more noticeable, like Fife. I will say this, though. The other character they introduced for this film, Angelique, definitely one of the best characters in the whole movie.
Oh, yes, it is lovely.
And you said it was impossible.
I said it was impossible without me.
I don't know, there's something about this kind of snarky, down-put, wants to be hopeful, but refuses to be character that really kind of works. And it's probably because she has a really good voice actor, and she actually has a pretty nice design. So yeah, all the new introduced characters, it's about an even split. Some are great, some are not. I never explained the plot. The plot is that Belle just wants to have Christmas, and the Beast really hates Christmas. And I'm glad I remembered to bring up the plot, because that's the other reason Beast regress. Blah, blah.
Who disturbs my Christmas?
Please, take this rose in exchange for shelter from the bitter cold.
It turns out that the curse that affected him took place on Christmas. And you know what? If a previous Christmas was the worst day of your life, I feel like it's a little understandable to be a little bit crankier on Christmas. Like I said, there are bits that just doesn't work, and the regression just feels too hard and too forced. But between him being manipulated by the villain, and the tragic backstory really pinpointing in on the holiday, I kind of get it. If anything, Belle's the one who feels more out of character. She kind of puts herself down a bit too much, which, yeah, there are people that think there's a bit of victim blaming or, Stockholm Syndrome stuff going on in the first movie, and there really isn't. But you could kind of apply that a little bit to this sequel. I think it's actually a pretty decent movie. Like, I would bump it up to average just because I do like some of the characters, and The animation can be very pretty. Oh, and also, I forgot, the biggest reason I think the movie works. The soundtrack bumps.
As long as there's Christmas.
I forgot how good the OST is for this. There's one song I don't like, it's called A Cut Above the Rest. Everything else, though, I'm going to try to play just a few seconds of each, like back to back, because maybe that won't affect the copyright issues, but if it does, you'll know because that bit won't happen. The song, As Long as There's Christmas, really kind of gets the Christmas spirit. I actually love that song, and I think it will fill your whole house with the festivity feelings if you just play that. As it stands, though, 3 out of 5. I enjoy it. I don't get the hate, but I do kind of understand the hate. I think it's one of the most average of these direct-to-video things. There's ones I like a lot better, but it kind of beats the mediocre ones, and I thought there was a lot of mediocre ones. So you remember how I said I'm going to be able to get most of this footage from Disney Plus? Wouldn't it be a shame if the last special I'm talking about is something that's not on Disney Plus? You guys up for some guerrilla-style filmmaking? Yeah, you ever hear about the TV show The House of Mouse? If you're a bit younger than me, maybe you haven't. It wasn't the longest lasting show, and I believe it aired on ABC. I think I remember it airing on Disney Channel sometimes, but I think it was actually mostly an ABC show. But basically, the idea was Mickey Mouse and his friends, they run this nightclub, and all the famous animated characters from the Disney movies, they come in and have drinks and have dinner, and they just spend the night there watching some cartoons. Sounds kind of great, right? Because it really is actually one of the better Disney shows from that time. I'm low-key kind of disappointed it's not on Disney Plus. It's really a lot of fun, but I don't know. Either Disney's forgotten about it, or there actually is paperwork with that one. They may have owned every single character, but from what I understand, there is such a thing as signing paperwork with yourself. And it's apparently a bit of a pain in the ass. So, who knows how long it will be. You can suggest to Disney help on Disney Plus what shows you would like to see or movies, and you're allowed 3. I used House of Mouse as mine, and then I think I put Nightmare Ned and Aladdin the series as well. If you have the time, would you mind doing that for House of Mouse as well? And if you don't really want Nightmare Ned or Aladdin the animated series, The Legend of Tarzan's not on there either. I like how I've made this sound like I'm stalling. But spoiler alert, this was the second best thing I watched. Mickey's Magical Christmas is, the plot is that everyone's snowed in at the House of Mouse. In fact, that's the whole title, I'm very sorry. And yeah, a full-length holiday movie that thankfully is on DVD, so I could legally watch it. And this DVD even comes with actually an episode of House of Mouse, so there's a lot of House of Mouse on this DVD. Not enough to tide me over, so please put it on Disney Plus, but at least there's this. Also, yes, I'm aware there was a Halloween special for House of Mouse as well. Of course I'm going to cover that one. Now, the other thing I didn't mention about House of Mouse is that those cartoons I said that the guests watch, those were under the banner of Mouseworks. And the Mickey Mouseworks was the Disney executives at the time had this idea, let's make some new Mickey and Friends cartoons. Let's make them a bit more modern, but let's still have fun with the characters. And the idea got approved, and they made a bunch of cartoons, and then they had no idea what to do with them. So they made House of Mouse to show those new Mickey Mousework cartoons. And like I said, I'm really only going off of things I remember from a while ago, and I'm not doing more research because I like to avoid making video essay content for this series and more so off-the-cuff review style and ranking into a list. And I say that because part of me feels like they probably also kept making the cartoons while they were making the show. Because while the show only got like a season or 2, I've looked at the episode listings and there's actually a good chunk of episodes, so they probably had to keep making cartoons. Of course, saying that, there's also a few times where older cartoons were shown, which is important to bring up for this one. One of the cartoons is Pluto's Christmas Tree. And then there's also Mickey's Christmas Carol. And the funny thing about Mickey's Christmas Carol being in this is that it's the syndicated version, so it's just a little bit shorter. So if you really love that one, and you are kind of interested in finding this, just be aware that the Christmas Carol is shorter, and maybe that won't be a bad thing, because I'm sorry, I like Mickey's Christmas Carol. I do think it's a little bit too long, and I kind of prefer the syndicated version I see in this one. Especially since I really like the Mickey Mouse Works cartoons. They're really fun. They introduced characters like Pete, who really hadn't been around for a while, and they really introduced a character people forgot about. You remember Mortimer Mouse? No one remembered Mortimer Mouse until this came along, and then suddenly he was shockingly popular. I mean, the show itself really helped revitalize some older, forgotten characters, and even breathed life into some characters that didn't need it. You ever wonder where No One Does Blank Like Gaston came from? It came from House of Mouse. It's an overarching narrative that is actually decent. Everyone's snowed into the House of Mouse, like I said, but also Donald is having a bit of the humbugs, so they're trying to revitalize Donald Duck's Christmas spirit, which means you get that fun, emotional Christmas stuff, as well as a lot of the rapid-fire comedy that House of Mouse was really good at. I wish I could say go watch this right now, but you'd have to track down this DVD, because this may not be as good as Once Upon a Christmas. It's much better than Beauty and the Beast's Enchanted Christmas. And considering the Beast is even in this special, hey, if that was the reason you wanted to watch Enchanted Christmas because you just can't get enough of the Beast, don't worry, he's in here. Hey, guys, superimposed different time and different day Wyatt here. So you'll even hear me say it again later in this same video, but during that recording session, the battery started dying, so I kind of had to speed myself along, which means two things. One is a quick thing that, would you believe I forgot to say the star rating? You know, the thing I did a couple times in the first video. Mickey's Magical Christmas, snowed into the House of Mouse, 3.5 out of 5. Yeah. Sorry I forgot to say it out loud. You know, that thing I make a graphic for in the videos anyway. The second is this, and it's funny. I was debating what else do I say to make sure I really got my point across. Because it feels like out of all the movies, I've talked about this one the least, despite the fact I enjoyed it the second most. But that's kind of the thing. This one just kind of works so well. It is really hard to decide what else needs to be said. And I know that's just a weird thing to add on to this, but everything I like about this is just a great example of what I really liked about the House of Mouse. I can't stress enough. I wish more people were able to see this, and I don't know when they will. I think House of Mouse and this film and the other House of Mouse film, the Halloween one, the House of Villains, I think we'll see those on Disney Plus someday. But I do think it will take some convincing. So like I said, go to that help section to the recommend a movie or show thing. Because what I really like about Storm of the House of Mouse is simple. I do like the overarching plot thing that explains why everyone is stuck in the House of Mouse. It's very simple, and it's just Donald learning to accept Christmas spirit. And it's so silly how just a dumb, simple, straightforward plot like that still works for Christmas energy. And even if that might not be the thing you're looking for, it still has the House of Mouse rapid-fire comedy, cameo after cameo kind of content. So it just feels like a slightly longer episode of the show, and there's just a bit more production value in some places, so you feel like it's worth your time. I'm kind of sad that the second best one is the one that you guys would have to go out of your way to watch. I don't even know how easy it is to find. Like, this DVD is probably a little bit harder to come by, and not really something you can justify unless you're someone like me who's making a YouTube series out of stuff like this. Well, one of the things that has put me the most in the Christmas spirit at this year, not that I've watched too much Christmas stuff yet, I've been weirdly watching a lot of Dragon Ball Z, but that's a different story. it's the one that's just on this DVD. And isn't that kind of sad? that one of my best experiences with Christmas so far was in standard definition. How could they do this to me? The battery on this is about to die, so I'll have to try to rush through this. Thanks for watching to the end if you did. If you can give it a like, I'd appreciate that. You won't see any dislikes, but I see the dislikes, so if you didn't like it, still go ahead and dislike. I do appreciate the feedback if you weren't a big fan. Leave a comment. Everyone will see those, so why not? Subscribe so you can see stuff like this more often. Ring the bell, or just check your subscriptions inbox to know when I upload. Apparently a lot of people just hope YouTube will show them their own subscriptions, which is not a bad request, but YouTube doesn't want to do that, so you have to do the extra mile. I'm very sorry. And I have a Patreon. If you give me $1 a month, you get videos like this early, and you'll get to start doing polls to say, hey, you should do this one next in that pile of ones you want to do. At the $2 tier, you actually get a chapter of my book every month, and I like these videos, but that's my gravy. That's my real good stuff. So yeah, all that fun stuff, and happy holidays to all you guys. I know this has been very Christmas focused because these are all Christmas specials, but happy holidays. I hope you enjoy them. I hope everything works out well for you. Peace out.